Hello, everyone, and welcome to this TELUS webinar, Overcoming Connectivity Challenges for Cellular IoT Applications. I'm Lindsay Kelly, VP of Digital and Content Marketing here at TELUS, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Before we get started, we would like to gauge an idea of how experienced our audience is with IoT deployments. So if you could please take a second to fill out our poll question, which you should now see on your screens, we'd be appreciative. Thank you. So let me introduce today's speakers for our webinar. I'm pleased to be joined by two gentlemen of TELUS here in the connectivity department. Well, first we have Scott Ellis. He is the VP of Connectivity here at TELUS. And second, we have Adam Cousins. Adam is a Technical Business Development Manager here at TELUS. Just before I hand it over to Scott, who's going to kick us off today, a couple of quick reminders. We would like to encourage the audience to interact by posting questions. We will have time to answer some of those questions at the end of the presentation. Simply submit the question by posting it to the box, which should be on the right of your slides on your screen. And finally, we will be sending out the presentation slides as well as a replay link to everyone at the conclusion of the webinar. We also invite you to check out some of our resources, which you will also find close over by that question box, and within that section, you'll find all kinds of great resources as well. And so with that, Scott, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to spend with us to talk about connectivity today. We're going to hop right in. I'm going to give some information on the market, and then we'll talk about a few use cases, and then we'll take some questions from you guys at the end. So we look forward to an interactive discussion. And once again, thanks for joining us. So, connectivity and IoT are not new to us at this point. We've been doing this for some time now. I know that I've been involved for, probably 15 plus years. And we've been seeing all along the way a lot of statistics and information about the ramp up of IoT in the marketplace, the growth curve, if you will, and we're fully behind that. So, as of a couple of years ago, there was a prediction that by 2028 we'd reach 5.3 billion connected devices globally, and TELUS took the initiative some time back to be involved in the space. As you know, we're a well-established module vendor for IoT, and we decided to leverage our experience and bring together another component here in the IoT ecosystem with connectivity a couple of years ago. So a couple more stats to talk through on, the market overview. The exponential growth is finally starting to happen. We're here, we're on the curve, and we're on it to the point of, even breaking down by segment where we think the technology growth will occur. And as you can see in this chart, cellular LPWAN at over 98% a year is really set to explode. And what this means is, more and more companies are trying to figure out, how do I get into this space? How do I make use of this technology to enhance my service to my customer or deliver a new service to my customers and add value? And that's what we're here to discuss today. That's what TELUS exists to address. And then specifically on this connectivity component, how can we assist you in navigating this new idea, this new concept to some of you, or this evolving concept to others? As I'm sure you're aware, the cellular networks change from time to time, usually for the better, but change means that you have to act and change your technology accordingly to keep up, and it can be complicated. On the connectivity side, what we see in most cases is, this idea that I've got this device with a cellular module in it and I need to connect it to get data, it seems very straightforward, right? I've used a cell phone for a long time. I know what cellular data plans look like. I go to my carrier and I get a plan, I get a SIM card or whatever, and I get data and I connect my device. It seems simple enough. But the reality is, in this space, it can be somewhat complex, right? I might need more than one option if I'm deploying in more than one geography. I might need more than one option if I'm deploying different technology variants. I may start someplace today, but a couple years later, or even several months later, I may decide that I want to deploy with a different technology, and that means I need to go out and procure another resource for that connectivity. And what sounded so simple at first turns into this complex reality of, what do I need to go to the different places? What certifications do I need to achieve? What regulations do I have to comply with? How do I figure out exactly the what, where, and how of connecting my things all over the world, potentially? And so what we aim to do and what we suggest you do is seek a partner that can simplify this complex reality as much as possible, right? At Telit, our approach is to standardize offerings from different carriers all around the world into a simple to understand, simple to consume offering or product or interaction, where you have a single point of interconnect, a single relationship to manage that provides access to a number of network operators all around the world. So, what are some of the common issues or questions that you should be asking both of yourself and of your technology partners as you enter this space? There are a number of them, and we'll cover a few of them today in some detail, and then we'll get into some additional detail through use cases as we talk. So, IoT connectivity, when I think about what that means to me, it varies by industry, application, and so on. Most of the concerns we hear are in the blue boxes. These are the most common ones. Unpredictable plan costs. If I take my device in different regions, or if I sign up an agreement with different carriers, how does that impact my cost? Is my operational cost a fixed number, or is it a variable? Does the technology partner that I'm working with have scalability? Can they, support me for 1,000 devices in the field, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million? As I consider the future and the longevity of my deployment, is it a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10-year expected life cycle? How do I future-proof that? How do I make sure that when I send a device out 5 years from now, it can interact with the network in the same way that it does today to deliver my information back to me? And how does that hardware and connectivity interplay come into the picture? In other words, is there a disconnect between my hardware technology and the underlying service provider or carrier, and how do I keep those devices up to speed and current with all of the changing network requirements? And then to add complexity there, if I'm dealing with multiple network operators, I only really compound the problem by adding different regions or management platforms. Maintenance costs for larger deployments, As carriers update or upgrade their networks over time, I'm required to do over-the-air updates to my device. So having resources available to manage large volumes of devices in a very organized way becomes important. And then deploying devices overseas. Do I have the same regulations everywhere I go, the same certification requirements? All things to consider as you're discussing, your options with a partner. So, solutions to some of these challenges in a partner can be highlighted here. Unpredictable plan costs, automated plan optimization. Are you required to choose a billing profile for each of your devices at the end or the beginning of each month? Is it, automated, or does someone have to manually go in and correct that for me? Are my prices fixed, or do they include pooling or bundling somehow? Are there hidden fees or activation charges or roaming charges that I have to be on the lookout for? Who from my organization will manage the reconciliation of all this information on a monthly basis? Is it the product team? Is it the finance team? Oftentimes there are different departments involved that don't necessarily have the same view or goals in mind when we are considering how to manage these processes. And so having a good understanding of that going in is extremely important. On scalability, a robust platform with aggregated solutions like we spoke of a moment ago. Do I, have the ability to interact with the platform with APIs, or is it all manual interface that I have to log into a portal or, run it from some application that's dedicated to this service? Is it future-proof? Is it aligned with the local network operators in the region that I want to deploy? Do I know what that regional operator's network roadmap looks like so that I can keep my hardware up to date? And if I do that, do I have support in a 24/7 format, or is there some limitation? Because most IoT deployments are active around the clock, transmitting information or not. They're monitoring the health of the device or the activity, the expected activity, or an alert situation 24/7. So if I have a problem, no matter when, is someone available to assist me so that I can get my device back online and have the information available from it, either available to my team or to my customer? In many cases, connectivity is simply a component of a bigger solution that I'm reselling. So if I can't deliver the data to my customer, I can't collect the money from my customer. Are we aggregating multiple MNOs in one platform? And how does that affect my ability to manage and deliver that service? Do I have tools available to me through the same platform or through another to conduct those over-the-air campaigns for updating my devices as the situation with each carrier changes? In many cases, there's third-party software required, and you have to go outside of the same portal in order to accomplish this goal. So our view is, if at all possible, having everything available in a single platform to manage the life cycle of my IoT deployment is extremely advantageous, if not necessary. And automation, we mentioned it earlier. So, reducing costs through automation. IoT deployments are growing in popularity, and a large part of that growth is due to the reduced cost and the ease of use or the ease of of getting into an IoT application now compared to several years ago. So a lot of companies have experience in this at this point, and it sounds pretty straightforward and easy. The reality is it's a bit more complicated than everyone thinks, but it's certainly doable. So, do I have the ability through API calls or some other mechanism to automate as much of the device management, rate plan configuration, service enablement as possible to really scale and give me the longevity that I desire? So hopefully that's been a helpful overview of the challenges that we're facing as we look at deploying IoT solutions in the marketplace. And what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Adam to talk a little bit about monitoring the health of your deployment.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us today. As Scott just outlined there, there's obviously a vast thought process that has to be undertaken by anybody embarking on an IoT deployment, and these issues are not trivial. So I want to run through a use case with you now. Hopefully some of it will resonate with some of your applications. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll say, oh, I knew this already, but what the heck, eh? So if we take this use case, a customer in the aftermarket vehicle or small fleet tracking space has circa 10,000 devices, and he provides it to 50 customers with a flat upfront pricing model and fair usage policy. So this is akin to you go into a store and buy a tracker, and it comes with 3 years worth of data. Some of the clients are high profile though. So of course, quality of service for potentially those clients usurps the overriding cost implication of overage. And of course, those clients may need a dynamic approach to fair usage from time to time, especially if the asset, if expensive, is stolen. Of course, the ultimate goal of this application is to recover a stolen asset, prevent the asset from being stolen in the first place. So if we limit it in such a way that it becomes useless, then there was no point in deploying it in the first place. So how do the deployment customer know that the SIMs don't consume more data than expected? Clearly, if you walk into a high street store and buy a SIM, you can buy a contract SIM, you can get unlimited data. I've come across many customers that tell me this. They can get an unlimited data plan for X amount per month. They can stick it in the unit and go on their way. Now, the issue, of course, is if you go over that allowance, and how do you monitor it? How do you actually ensure that these devices don't? How do they separate out different client SIMs so they can manage them effectively? These clients have different estates of SIMs in the field, so each of their end customers, it may be one SIM in a really high-end luxury car. It may be another client with 2,000 SIMs in a fleet of vehicles that go around delivering parcels. How do you effectively monitor which SIMs belong to which customer? How would you, for instance, deactivate a SIM if it does cross a predefined threshold of usage? So if a SIM's may be removed from the device and it gets put into a child's iPad and they start streaming Netflix, how do you put a stop to that before you end up with a ridiculous data overage? And of course, how do you ensure that SIM has not been removed? So Telit runs a vast monitoring and alerting capable platform called CDP Pro. It's a unified global management platform, meaning that all the MNOs that you saw in Scott's slide back there, the likes of AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, Tele2, Telefonica, all of that information can be aggregated and consumed within one useful platform. Here you can see a useful snapshot of this platform. The various boxes indicate different use case parameters. So you can see high runners, you can see devices that have consumed the most data, the least data, how many sessions are active, how many SMSs have been sent. You can even see a deployment map of your products. So clearly, if a device pops up in outer Guatemala and it shouldn't be, then you'll have pretty early indication that the product isn't where it's supposed to be. The management platform itself simplifies and streamlines the control and operation over the entire SIM deployment. Specific estates SIMs can be assigned to suborgs. So you as a customer would have a parent organization, and within that parent organization, you can define sub-organizations which can be related and broken out to specific end customers. You can even provide those end customers with third-party access with definable permissions. We go back to that map view. So how do the devices know where they are? Because of course, not everything has GNSS inside it. So we provide a global positioning service based on the last known location received from the network side at the start and end of an update of a PDP context. So the device doesn't even need to have a GNSS receiver associated to it or within it. This is all done over the data connectivity. And whilst the resolution or the accuracy of the position may not be as good as a GNSS receiver, actually it will give you a good indication of whether the device is roughly where it's supposed to be, even if the product has maybe undergone some kind of GNSS jamming or if GNSS was never part of the application or the intention of it in the first place. We can set triggers within the platform. Now, these triggers are based on daily CDRs and real-time radius data. So you can build these triggers using a nice easy drag and drop process, and they can be used to convey to an email or SMS or even a HTTP endpoint based on an activity that has been recorded within the application, within the service itself. So if a device does go over a certain amount of data, or if a device's associated IMEI number changes because a SIM's been removed and placed into something else, then you can set up a trigger to instantly alert to whatever platform you need the event occurring in real time. Running a 24/7 network operations center is imperative. You don't want a service provider who's going to be going home at 5:30 on a Friday evening because, in my experience, most of the problems happen over the weekend. So what you need is a 24/7 network operations center, monitoring the real-time performance of the deployed estate. Now, this isn't a purely reactive service. We run shoulder to shoulder with the partners and their network operation centers. We can alert proactively to service degradation. So let's go to the next slide. Network degradation. And we provide superior monitoring and drill down capabilities utilizing radius signaling data. We can provide reactive and proactive alerts to customers on misbehaving devices. Now, devices misbehaving is a big issue. The issue around writing the software for your product becomes paramount, in so much as just switching it on and letting it do whatever it wants to with the network is not enough. You have to make sure that the device switches on and it registers effectively. It doesn't go through a multiple retry PDP context activation scenario. This can consume significant data, and it can also result in the device being kicked off the network, which is something you definitely don't want. We're able to provide a proactive alerting system to that kind of misbehavior. And of course, we have technical personnel available locally. We have 3 centers which follow the sun, essentially. So there's always someone on the end of the phone to be able to speak to about any of your deployments. So the deployment online monitoring, you can see a snapshot here. We're able to see in real time devices which are misbehaving, devices which cannot create a connection, devices which are creating multiple PDP context activations unnecessarily, devices which have consumed too much data. So we have a great resolution of information available to us, which enables us to proactively alert you to anything that goes wrong with your deployment. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Scott again. He's going to talk to you about data plan management. If you've got any questions, then obviously feel free to send them through to the online service.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. So another key component to consider in your overall deployment is data plan management. And so in this use case example, we'll talk about a security market customer, security alarms, right? So hopefully most of you are familiar with this profile, but insert your own, use case here. In security, low power consumption or battery driven with low data usage is very important. Premium products offer higher data usage. So in this scenario, what we find most often is average data consumption of each type of customer is known, but the customers also understand that in some cases, when there's alarms or over-the-air updates that are necessary, more data will be needed, right? So where in a normal case or a normal month, maybe I only use, 50 kilobytes of data because I ping it once a day, just a health check. In other months, I have an alarm situation or an over-the-air update to do, and I could use many, many times that amount of data, and it's hard to plan accordingly. So, how do we manage assigning the appropriate rate plan and on what cadence, right? Is it once a month? Is it only before I know I'm going to do FODA? Which plan suits their specific needs? In other words, some customers have more alarm events than others. In some cases, it's a usage profile for more check-ins than others. And if I get it wrong, how do I avoid, a bill shock from that data overage? If I was expecting to use 50 KB and I used, a megabyte, that's an extreme difference. And I need to ensure that in my agreement with the operator, I've accounted for that so that I can absorb or spread that out across a pool of devices. And then how do you manage the over-the-air update process? With a few hundred or even a few thousand devices, it's not too cumbersome. But when I start talking about, a true deployment, a big deployment of 10,000, 100,000, or maybe even, a million plus devices, we hope, how do I make sure that I can schedule the updates in chunks, monitor the success of those updates, and plan accordingly? Is that someone's specific job, or do I have a system available to me to make all of this happen? And so we'll talk about some of the options that we have here at Telit, and encourage you to, ask these questions, seek out the same in your other partnerships or when you're looking for connectivity. So on the efficiency, on the how much data do I need, a lot of companies talk about pooling or pooled bundles. So instead of just having a single device with a set amount of data, a megabyte, for example, what I look for is somebody to offer me a pooled bundle on the megabyte plan. So if I have 10 devices that are all assigned a 1 megabyte rate plan, then in essence, I have 10 megabytes of data that I can use across those 10 devices. Doesn't matter if, one of them uses 5 megabytes and the rest use half meg each, or whatever the mix might be. This allows me to spread out my consumption across a larger number of devices and account for those alerting situations that I can't really plan for. Or a FODA campaign where I know I'm going to need extra data, but instead of doing it to my entire base, I do it to a certain portion of the devices in a given month so that I can manage my cost accordingly. And then is it on each SIM? Is it by rate plan? So what we offer here is pooled bundles by plan. So all of my 1 megabyte devices pool together, all of my 2 megabyte devices pool together, and so on and so forth. But in addition to that, we also, through our Optimus solution, offer an additional look at not only the efficiency of the pool, but the efficiency of the entire deployment within those pools. So this is really a two-prong approach or a two-step process that we bring as a value to our customers. So if I have multiple usage profiles, like in this scenario, rather than assigning someone the task of figuring out which devices need which rate plan at any given point in time, our approach is rate plan optimization through a feature we call Optimus. Very unique name, I know. And so what this system does is, in an automated way, on behalf of the client, goes through at the end of the billing cycle, not the beginning, but after the data has been consumed for the billing cycle, we look at how much data was consumed by each device, and we assign the appropriate rate plan. And then we take another pass and look to see if the pooled data that was available to all of those devices was enough or too much to cover the actual consumption. And then we adjust devices amongst the rate plan pools accordingly. So it performs a really valuable service to our clients. You know, you don't need a person to actively manage this. A single person can reconcile the bill in a very short amount of time, and it really reduces the risk of bill shock or an extreme overage that was unexpected, because, you know, we're not trying to guess beforehand. We're simply applying the most appropriate plan after the fact. And we can build a number of plans to cover a wide range of use cases within each account. So it's a tremendous value that we offer to all of our partners in the space. We also offer what we call the Telit One Edge application, which includes a photo component. So Firmware Over the Air is what it stands for. And with this platform, you can schedule what we call a campaign. So you can choose a portion of your device deployment, all of them, whatever suits your needs. You can set times, you can set guidelines on, you know, if this, then that, what happens. And then you can monitor the status of that. It may take some days, depending on the type of deployment you have. Security monitoring is pretty straightforward and always connected because it's stationary. But if you've got a mobile asset on a vehicle, for example, and that device is in and out of coverage sometimes, it may not be in coverage, or it may not be powered on when you try to send out the message for the photo update. So, you know, in some cases, a number of days can pass while you manage this campaign. And so monitoring the health of your devices, seeing which ones have been updated and all that is good information to have. And, you know, again, when it's available in the same platform, it's an ease of use, ease of integration for your business. So once again, we'll turn it back over to Adam. If you've got questions, please post them to the screen. And Adam's going to talk about solving issues remotely.
Hi, everybody again. Right, so solving issues remotely. This is kind of the holy grail. Obviously, when I speak to clients about modems, they nickel and dime me over the price of a device, same with connectivity. But ultimately, the total cost of ownership comes after the product's been deployed. And how do you mitigate against having to do a truck roll? It's all well and good saving 5 cents a month on a connectivity airtime or a couple of bucks on a modem, but it costs you a bit of money to go back out to that device once it's been deployed, then it kind of defeats the initial cost saving. So we'll take this example. Customer in the smart city market has devices deployed on streetlights, and streetlights, of course, are high up by their very nature, and you need a cherry picker to get up there and sort anything out. A technician visit to a streetlight can cost over €1,000, which is about the same in dollars at the moment with our current economic climate. But actually, this is applicable to any IoT application. This could be something that sits in the ground. This could be something that sits in your grandma's house. This could be something that fits to your dog. Whatever it is, you don't really want to have to dispatch an engineer to go and have to see any of these devices again, because it will cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars at the very least in order to do that. So how do you reduce site visits and the associated OPEX, and how do you solve issues remotely? So we go back to the connectivity management portal again, because it gives some valuable insights as to the deployment. From within the connectivity management suite, as I said before, you can view the location of devices, you can see high runners, but also you can see devices that haven't connected, haven't created online sessions, that maybe haven't consumed data. You can scrutinize down into those products within the connections tab to be able to see the actual radius network data. You can see if a session's been created and it's been created at 0 bytes, which means actually that there was no successful data transaction present. And 0 byte sessions are bad news. It can mean a poor network signal. It can mean bad network congestion. It essentially means that the device isn't doing what it's supposed to do. Now, being able to view various elements is good, but being able to actually engender some kind of change in these devices is kind of the ticket. So if you have an application in the field which is using a roaming SIM, this is more applicable to European deployments than US, because US deployments tend to use native SIMs connected to a specific MNO. But in Europe, use a roaming SIM card, and if a particular network operator maybe starts to refarm their 2G or their 3G spectrum away from a particular area, which starts creating troublesome connectivity for your device, there isn't anything in the 3GPP standard which requires the modem to have to go hunting for a new network. All that's required is that it's able to register. Once a device is registered to a particular network operator, it's actually, you have to tell it to stop using that network operator. It's not going to do it all by itself. Now, there's two ways you can do that. What you can do is you can send it an AT command, which forces it to rescan networks and connect to a new one by clearing down the location register, which of course is your cherry picker or guy up on the ladder or engineer dispatch to send this AT command. Or you can use an online service which is provided within our portal called Switch. What Switch does is allows you to view all available network operators of a particular device. Now, it does require the device to be online and operational. So this is more for a device that is still online, not one that's already fallen off the network for whatever reason. But if the device is still talking at some level to the network, you can use this switch service to be able to blacklist a particular network operator in a given region, thereby forcing the device upon next restart to go and scan for new network operators. And as it's a roaming SIM, it will go and find another one and hopefully connect. What this can help mitigate against is situations where maybe there's some either planned maintenance or maybe some slightly unexpected maintenance, or where the device isn't behaving as robustly as you would hope at the edge. And of course, you just want to improve the quality of service for your clients. Something else that you can do is remote AT. Now, clearly, being able to send AT commands to a modem usually requires a serial cable and hyperterminal and an engineer. However, via our OneEdge service, we are able to offer remote AT via lightweight M2M. So we've created an object which, via the device management agent inside our CAT-M and narrowband modems, is able to allow you to relay AT commands directly to the AT command parser of the modem, bypassing your application processor, and you can glean more information than your device was ever designed to collect at the edge. Furthermore, you can instruct the device via this AT command interface to act upon a certain situation. Maybe you need to change an APN name. Maybe you need to get more information about a particular network cell, something that your software designer never envisaged would be a requirement when they wrote the software 3 years ago. So remote AT is incredibly powerful, and it's available via OneEdge. It's available for legacy products via our connectivity portal, via CDP Pro as well. So device management, if we go back to OneEdge, and you've heard me mention it a couple of times now. So why is OneEdge and device management required? So in its purest form, you want to ensure quality of service, uptime, and security for the IoT devices throughout the whole device lifecycle. So when you deploy a product, you want to make sure it keeps working and keeps doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing without having to be hampered by the evolution of the network infrastructure and the evolution of security protocol. So if we look at things like transportation layer security, that's gone through TLS 1, 1.1, 1.2, and we're probably up to about 1.3 now. And of course, each TLS standard requires an update to the modem. It also requires higher bandwidth than is necessary. So if we can lighten the security payload whilst maintaining its robustness, then this has wide-reaching, far-reaching implications for IoT, and of course the overall reduction of OPEX and solidifies the application in the field. Ensuring your devices work properly and securely after they've been deployed. Securing access to the IoT devices, so monitoring health, detecting, remotely troubleshooting, and managing software problems and firmware updates. These things all become paramount. I mean, we've all enjoyed the stability of 2G and 3G over the years. You know, the modems never really needed any updates. They just kept working. I've got customers that have got 2G devices that were deployed in 1999, still register, they still send their data. They've never needed a firmware update. But the problem with LTE is in the name. It's a long-term evolution. And LTE as a network standard embraces so many different facets and technologies, with the likes of, you know, in its most basic form, narrowband IoT in category M1, but also right up to 5G technologies for enhanced mobile broadband and ultra-low latency communications. There's going to be some evolution within the infrastructure, and that's going to happen at different stages throughout a product's life cycle, and you need to be on top of that to ensure your products keep working. You need to increase your operational awareness of these devices as well. So you need to know what's happening at each device at any given moment and get exception alerts. And these can be done via the triggers and, of course, via the lightweight M2M agent, which not only provides insights into the modem's connectivity to the infrastructure, but is also extensible to embrace your own application as well. So it's a very, very flexible platform to use. And, of course, the ultimate goal of all of this is to reduce the total cost of ownership. So by being able to remotely manage devices, you reduce your operational effort in order to maintain it at the edge. So this is stuff that we all have to bear in mind. So just going back to the connectivity dashboards again, there are high runners, so you can view high runners within the connectivity dashboard. You can see devices at a snapshot that have consumed more data than they should. These devices, hopefully you've bought one of these Optimus packages that Scott talked about, and can be embraced by a higher data bundle plan, enabling you to avert bill shock. But you know, sometimes SIMs do get removed, they do get put in other devices, and you do need to be made aware as soon as possible that there is a large data consumption going on. And by virtue of near real-time radius data, that is possible on these products. And of course, you've got usage trends. So we can build easy-to-use graphs for you to be able to visualize the data. And you can view your entire state of connections to ensure that everything's baselining correctly across all the various metrics. So with that, I'm going to hand you back over to Scott. He's going to talk about expanding your deployment to the US and the challenges associated with that.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. So in this case, we'll talk about a customer that's in the vending market that has a mature EU deployment and wishes to penetrate the US market with the same solution or a very similar model that they're using in the EU. And so I was looking at some of the questions while Adam was speaking just now, and thanks for submitting those. Please, if you have additional questions, send them through. But we got a question about suggesting whether or not our partners or customers work directly with the carriers, and we'll speak directly to some of that in this section. So as we look at taking our deployment from one region to another, regardless of which way you're going, but in this case from the EU to the US, there are a bunch of questions that come up, right? Do we need to certify the devices? Does the module that I'm using in Europe also work in the US, or do I have to go find a new piece of hardware and design that in? Is the SIM card that I'm using in Europe an acceptable solution for use in the US? In many cases, roaming is okay in the US, but in some cases, permanent roaming is not permitted. In others, it is. So, it's network operator dependent, and this is part of the complexity we spoke of earlier. And when you're choosing a partner for this space, some of the questions you need to consider. So, coming to the U.S., do I need to certify? Well, it's going to depend really on some of the previous answers that you provided. Do I want to continue with my European SIM or a SIM from some other place that can roam in the U.S. permanently? Is that acceptable? Maybe it is. But I may still need to get some level of certification from one of the U.S. operators, depending on which one they're partnered, my roaming solution is partnered with. Our suggestion is typically to make use of one of the regionally based network operators. In the U.S. case, it's going to be one of these three at this point. Of course, Sprint being consumed by T-Mobile has now been left off of the list. We're down to the big three. And we always suggest a native SIM for one of those network operators. The primary reason for that is support and that operator's roaming footprint, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a moment. And then each of these operators, even within the U.S., has different technology requirements, right? They all use different frequencies. Most of them can roam from one to the other, but they all have their own bands that they're deployed with. So ensuring that you've got full coverage or the appropriate technology built into your hardware to interact with the carrier that you're interested in working with is super important. And then, what's the certification process requirement for that particular operator? It varies between all three of them. There's some pre-certification requirements here in the U.S. They all require what's called PTCRB certification, which is an industry standards board that each of these companies is a member of, and they set a baseline or a base level of certification requirement to interact with the network, and then you have to go to each network operator for their specific testing requirements. And so one of the services that we provide, having direct relationships with all three of these guys, are help in making those decisions, help in getting through that process, and help in troubleshooting along the way. So if I have a roaming SIM card, for example, and I'm trying to get onto the AT&T network in the US, and I'm having issues, if I need support from the network operator directly to try and troubleshoot, I'm going to have a much harder time going through my roaming partner to get at a qualified AT&T direct person. Whereas, working with someone like Telit, we have those direct relationships, and we're happy to introduce you directly to them. They're our partners, right? They need you to be successful with us and get onto their network. So, I don't think I'm suggesting that you avoid going directly to the carrier at all, but what I am suggesting is if you need more than one, or if you're looking for long-term options, a partner that can aggregate different carriers into one platform is potentially a much better solution for you, because it gives you that long-term scalability and it eliminates the need to renegotiate and sign up a new agreement, etc. So along the AT&T line, just to continue, but this is in no way picking on AT&T. This example applies to any network operator here in the U.S. and most likely most of them around the world. So a native solution, what does that mean? Well, it means that it's a SIM card profile issued directly from that carrier, and it means that I get access to not only their owned network, but also their roaming partners. So in this example, on this map, this is a snapshot of the southwestern United States. And hopefully most of you recognize that the orange part down here at the bottom of the screen is Mexico. So of course that's going to be international roaming. But the orange part towards the center of the image is in Utah or Arizona. And so you can see the key there. It says off-net coverage. It's orange. And what that means is they don't own that network, but they have a partner that owns that network. And if you have one of their SIMs, you're more than welcome to go there, make use of the network at the same rates that we've already talked about. If you've got a roaming SIM that is capable of working with AT&T, it does not enjoy the same benefit. So you will not get their off-net coverage. You only get the blue and the green. Hopefully that's clear. All right. So back to, kind of our portal, again, aggregating all of those carrier options into a single view. It's a little hard to tell from this small graphic, but what we do is we present your entire deployment, regardless of carrier, in a single image for your management, right? So it's something that you can hover over. You can see how many devices do I have on which network operator, are they connecting properly, all that fun stuff. So, this one snapshot, kind of one pane of glass to view your entire deployment is extremely important to managing complex solutions. So, examples of individual carrier interfaces, mostly the same information, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, et cetera. The difference is, they all have their own format. Even though it's the same information, it's all slightly different. And so navigating all of these or managing them on your own can be a challenge. And we like that aggregated approach. Certification, we already talked some about, but we, being very involved on the hardware side, we work with every one of the carriers almost all around the world on a very regular basis, keeping up with their roadmap technology to certify our modules. And then we can assist you through our connectivity offering with the same services. And it's not a requirement to have a Telit module inside to work with us on the connectivity side, but there are some benefits. So we can work with you either way, but obviously we prefer to have both. All right, so in summary, and we'll get to some of your questions, we're offering kind of this aggregated view, a long-term technology roadmap, right? Whether you're 2G, 3G, LTE, and beyond. 2G and 3G are now fading. LTE is in the midst of its life cycle. 5G's next. Having a partner that understands all of this and can work with you along the way and help you future-proof your IoT deployment is extremely valuable. Simple terms, you can take your solution to multiple regions and have a single interface with global connectivity and management, as well as an enhanced suite of security services that we can put around to help you manage the life cycle, photo campaigns, troubleshooting, security, all that fun stuff is where Telit can be a trusted partner. All right. So one of the things we do is we offer what we call a connectivity starter kits. So you can, as part of the broadcast here, we're offering up to 6 months of 10 megs a month of data for you to give us a try. And you can go to this web page and sign up. It's very simple and straightforward. We won't ask for your birthday or social security number or anything like that, I promise. It's simply name, address, and what do you need, and we'd be happy to get you going. So we appreciate you joining us today. Thanks again for your time. I think there's some questions, Lindsay, that we can probably field.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Scott and Adam. Great information. Thank you for all your questions, too. We have some really great ones, and we have a little bit of time here. Before I get to those, I'm going to drop one more poll. That way, if anybody would like information or to be contacted, if you just complete the poll, we will make sure that we reach out to you, one of our subject matter experts. So let's jump right into some of these questions here. Let's see. So this could be for either one of you guys. Let's see. Can you please quickly talk about the difference between HTTP and HTTPS connectivity? Microsoft Azure, AWS, etc. doesn't require HTTPS connections. Can you guys kind of talk through that a little bit? And the power consuming aspects of that? Great. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, for sure. No worries.
I'm glad Adam can.
No, I love talking about this stuff. So obviously HTTPS and HTTPS, which is the secure version of it, are required by the likes of AWS and Azure. And of course, these add what essentially is an unnecessary overhead to the data package that has to be sent from the edge up to the enterprise, up to the cloud service provider. Now, it's an interesting question because it's something I talk about on a daily basis with clients, especially around the necessity to re-architect their system. Now, clearly, when you had a 2G or a 3G or even a Cat1 LTE connection, providing a HTTPS connection up to an enterprise server is relatively straightforward. If not, it enlarges the data packet size, but it is relatively straightforward because of the, reasonably low latency nature of these communications. If we move into a narrowband IoT arena, where maybe a narrowband IoT modem is in an enhanced coverage class mode, so we say it's in connected mode B, which means it's having to work its socks off to try and maintain the link budget to the cell tower. And by working its socks off, a narrowband modem doesn't increase its transmit power like an old GSM modem used to. What it does is it repeats its transmission up to 2,000 times in order to mitigate a link budget issue. Now, in that circumstance, if you try and do a HTTPS or any kind of TLS connection to a cloud service provider, it's going to fall over because your effective throughput is going to be down in the single-digit bits, and your latency is going to be so high at maybe 20 or 30 seconds that the service provider is going to eventually give up waiting for you to respond. So what can we do about it? In short, what we do, and something that we're now promoting to clients, is the use of our one-edge server as an intermediary. So as an intermediary, what we can do is we can leverage the CoAP and DTLS security protocols capable on this platform. And of course, CoAP and DTLS security is facilitated because the modems themselves contain a trust zone with a secure encryption key, and the public key exchange of that secure encryption is known to the one-edge server, which means we can associate devices to our one-edge server, leverage these incredibly lightweight DTLS and CoAP security protocols, and transmit the data via UDP using lightweight M2M objects, not just for device management, but also for the application data payload as well. Once the data has entered our one-edge service, what we have are cloud connectors. So we have APIs pre-built to be able to publish that data to whatever enterprise cloud service provider you need. This could be Azure, it could be Google Cloud, it could be AWS, it could be your own homebrew cloud service. We can build a connector using whatever protocols you need, because in cloud-to-cloud land, you've got unlimited power and unlimited data. So it's actually really very, very easy. So hopefully that answers your question.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam. And folks, please continue to put your questions into the box to the right of the slides. Also note that we have a resources tab as well. Please check that out. The link to the actual webinar offer that Scott spoke of is in there, so you have a direct link there. Just pop on in there, see what we've got. Let's see. Next question, is the OTA firmware update just for the module, or is it the customer hardware too?
I think I answered that one in a personal response, but just to recap, the OTA update process is only for the modem using our campaign manager. However, the lightweight M2M object that we use for firmware over the air is not something that Telit invented. We're reusing an OMA lightweight M2M object, which is freely available and extensible to customers' applications. So just get in touch with us. If you want to create your own campaign management service to manage the firmware update over the air to your own microprocessor firmware, then that's certainly something we can talk to you about.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are right at time now, guys. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who was able to attend today. Thank you to our speakers. Wonderful information. Please check your inboxes for the coming days for the slides as well as the replay link. And everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys and girls.